So today we're doing a deep dive into something you probably have in your house right now, but haven't really thought about all that much, the fireplace.
Right, the classic hole in the wall. But, I mean, we're looking at some really fascinating research today from a researcher named Ray Gessner. He's been digging into the archives of a historical fireplace designer named Francis Casini.
Yeah, and Gessner found something that completely changes the way we should look at how these things actually work. And honestly, it starts with just getting the terminology right.
Exactly. I mean, Gessner was basically obsessed with this specific term that Cassini coined, because most people, even professionals, honestly, they use really sloppy language. They just call everything above the firebox the smoke chamber.
But Ray absolutely refuses to use that. He insists on using Cassini's exact phrase, and he gives Cassini total credit for this. He calls it the throat chamber.
The throat chamber, yeah. And he argues it's not just a semantic thing, it is purely functional.
Right, so if we're being strict about it, what exactly is the anatomy of this throat chamber?
Well, it's a super specific zone. It's the vertical transition pocket that sits right there, bounded by the top of the fireplace opening at the bottom and the damper plane at the top.
This is not just a funnel for smoke to go up.
No, not at all. Cassini actually defines it as a staging area. So it's this pocket where rising gases collect and sort of stabilize before they actually pass through the damper.
Ah, I see. So it's a buffer, and the damper is basically the control mechanism for that buffer. Which is funny because I feel like we've all been conditioned to treat the damper as just a binary switch. You know, you open it when you want to fire, and you close it so birds don't fly into your living room.
Right, which is historically totally incorrect.
Oh, totally. If you look at older hardware, like those old poker-style dampers with the notched arms or the worm screw rotary ones.
Yeah, they were built for indexing. They were literally designed to be throttled so the user could fine-tune the exact size of the opening.
So let's talk about the fluid dynamics of that. Because if I just do what everyone does and crank that damper wide open, I'm creating a massive velocity problem, right?
Exactly. If it's open way too far, you end up pulling air through that throat chamber way too aggressively. It creates all this turbulence.
Disorganized flow, right. I think that's what engineers call it.
Yeah, disorganized flow. And you end up over-diluting the smoke stream with just massive amounts of room temperature air.
Which instantly cools the smoke down. You're basically stripping the heat right out of the firebox and sending all that usable energy straight up the chimney before it can even radiate into the room.
Correct. But the inverse is also true. Clamping it down too tight is just as bad.
Because it chokes the system.
Right. If you restrict it too much, the throat chamber becomes a bottleneck. It physically cannot pass the volume of gas that your fire is producing.
And then the pressure equalizes at the opening and you get smoke spilling straight into your room, especially when you're just starting the fire.
Exactly. So what we're really looking for is the sweet spot. The notes we're looking at describe the ultimate goal as creating a stable plenum.
A stable plenum. Meaning we want just enough restriction to keep that rising column of gas warm and, well, coherent.
Coherent is the perfect word for it. If you can hold those hot combustion products in the throat region for just a fraction of a second longer without stalling them out completely, you preserve the heat.
And that heat is exactly what drives the draft up the chimney, which leads right into the chemistry of it all, especially regarding safety and creosote buildup.
That's the real payoff here. When you maintain those higher flue gas temperatures in the throat chamber, you get a significantly cleaner burn.
Right, because you reduce the condensation of all those unburned compounds.
Yeah, that heavy terry creosote that ruins chimneys, that only builds up when smoke cools down too fast and sticks to the masonry. But keeping the throat chamber hot completely prevents that.
So the goal isn't really just getting a longer residence time for the smoke. It's about maintaining a stable draft and adequate temperature. It really reframes the whole fireplace from just a static brick box into a tunable engine.
Precisely. Because you have all these variable conditions, right? You've got wind outside, the fuel load is changing inside as the wood burns down. A fixed hole just can't handle dynamic variables like that.
Right. You need that manual control.
Yeah.
You need that adjustable damper to maintain what Cassini calls stable draft.
It makes you look at a lot of modern setups entirely differently.
Oh, absolutely. If the throat chamber is the engine, it feels like a lot of modern builds have essentially welded the hood shut by just removing adjustable dampers entirely. So next time you're setting up a fire, maybe think like Cassini. Don't just flip a valve open, try actually tuning the engine.
It definitely gives you something to think about before you strike a match.
For sure. Maybe take a look up your chimney and see what kind of hardware you actually have in there. You might be surprised at what you're working with.